Let's be real for a second. Dating a Capricorn is a strategic operation. It's not just about vibes, chemistry, or seeing where things go. No. With a Capricorn, you're dealing with a mind that runs on structure, responsibility, and long-term vision. They're not here for chaos. They're not here for spontaneity that ends in disaster. And they definitely don't have time for emotional roller coasters disguised as romantic adventures. This is someone who reads the fine print, who shows up early, who knows the difference between a plan and a fantasy. Capricorns don't just date. You're either a potential life partner or a temporary distraction they'll quietly phase out. That might sound cold, but it's not. It's precision. It's intention. And if you don't get that, you're going to keep inviting them to all the wrong places, wondering why they always have work or just aren't feeling it. If you want to actually win with a Capricorn, you need to understand what instantly turns them off. That's exactly what this video is about. Today, we're breaking down 6 places you should never suggest for a date, unless you want to watch a Capricorn mentally check out right in front of you. So before you plan something fun and spontaneous, make sure you're not accidentally triggering their inner panic switch. And hey, if you love no-nonsense Zodiac advice, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a like and stick around to see just how fast a Capricorn can walk away when the date goes wrong. Let's start with the first red flag. Picture this. You text them out of nowhere and say, "Pack your bags, we're going on a surprise trip." Sounds exciting, right? Well, not to a Capricorn. Number 1, a last-minute trip with no plan. So here's the scene. It's a Saturday morning. You text your Capricorn crush something like, "Hey, be ready in 20 minutes. We're going on a little adventure." Maybe you think this is romantic. Maybe it's spontaneous. Maybe you saw it in a movie and thought, wow, this is how you make memories. But here's the problem. You just triggered every single alarm in a Capricorn's mind. See, for most people, a last-minute trip might feel exciting. It's unpredictable. It's wild. But for a Capricorn, it's chaos. It's like inviting them to jump into a black hole with no idea what's on the other side. They won't feel free. They'll feel trapped. Capricorns live by one unshakable rule. Control creates comfort. It's not that they hate fun. It's not that they don't want to explore new places or be adventurous. They just want to know what they're walking into. They want to prepare, to plan, to feel grounded even when they're away from their routine. Imagine walking into a boardroom with no agenda, no slides, no bullet points. That's how a Capricorn feels when you suggest a spontaneous getaway with no itinerary. And let's go even deeper, because this isn't just about schedules. This touches a core Capricorn wound, the fear of wasting time. Capricorns have a love-hate relationship with time. They crave efficiency. They track progress like it's oxygen. If they're not building something, career, relationships, skills, they start to feel like they're falling behind. So when you suggest an impromptu trip with no structure, what they hear isn't "let's have fun." What they hear is, "let's potentially waste a whole weekend doing nothing useful in a place I haven't researched, surrounded by unpredictable variables, with no way to plan for Monday." That's not a date. That's a crisis. Now let's talk logistics. You might think, okay, I'll plan everything myself and just surprise them. Still a bad idea, because even if it's all figured out, you robbed them of their favorite part, the preparation. Capricorns love to prepare. The suitcase checklist, the budget spreadsheet, researching reviews, watching videos about the best cafes in town. That's not a chore to them. That's foreplay. That's the warm-up that makes the trip feel meaningful. So when you take that away, even if the trip is technically perfect, it won't feel that way to them. It'll feel like a whirlwind they weren't invited to fully participate in. It might even come off as disrespectful, like their input didn't matter. And for a sign that values effort, contribution, and partnership, that's a major turnoff. Let's not forget the financial side. If the trip costs money and they didn't get to approve the expenses, yikes. Capricorns are practical. They want to know, is this worth it? What's the ROI of this experience? Can I justify this cost in terms of emotional or intellectual growth? And before you say that sounds robotic, no. That sounds like someone who values their time, money, and mental peace. That sounds like someone who's built to win. And here's the kicker. They won't explode on you. They won't scream, How dare you plan a spontaneous weekend? They'll just smile, go along with it, and silently remove you from the running. Because for them, your inability to understand this boundary signals something deeper. You don't get how they operate. You're not in sync with their rhythm. You don't respect the thoughtfulness they bring to every area of life, and that's the part that really hurts them. Not the surprise itself, but the message beneath it. Because to them, spontaneity without clarity is just laziness in a shiny outfit. So the next time you think about sweeping a Capricorn off their feet with a random "let's go," pause. Ask yourself, do they know where we're going? Do they have time to plan? Do they feel included in the decision? Because if not, you're not taking them on a trip. You're sending them into a mental minefield. And yet, ironically, Capricorns do love travel. They enjoy seeing the world, exploring history, learning through experiences, but they want it to be structured. They want to feel secure, useful, and respected. They want the trip to reflect thought, not impulse. Now imagine the opposite of a chaotic trip. A Capricorn's dream travel invite looks like this. Hey, I found this 3-day getaway 2 weeks from now. I booked a quiet Airbnb. Here's the itinerary, and I budgeted it so we're not overspending. I even made dinner reservations. Wanna go? That's sexy. That's irresistible. That's how you make a Capricorn feel safe and seen. And when they feel that, they'll open up in ways that'll surprise you. Because the truth is, Capricorns are not cold. They're just careful. They're not distant. They're just discerning. When you approach them with structure and intention, their walls don't just come down. They transform. You'll get depth, loyalty, dry wit, and a kind of steady emotional presence that most people spend years searching for. But first, you have to prove that you see the world the way they do, or at least that you respect it. And that brings us to number 2, a loud, overcrowded festival with no structure or clean bathrooms. If there's one thing a Capricorn hates more than chaos, it's loud chaos in public with no exit strategy. You might think music festivals are the universal language of fun. Everyone dancing, vibing, feeling free under the sky. But to a Capricorn, that's not freedom. That's a crowded, sticky, disorganized arena of anxiety. It's loud, it's unpredictable, it's overstimulating, and worst of all, it's completely unproductive. Let's start with the obvious, the noise. Capricorns are naturally reserved. Even if they love music, they tend to experience it in controlled environments. Headphones, playlists, cozy living rooms. Throw them into a massive field with booming speakers, drunk strangers screaming, and lines that wrap around the block for overpriced snacks. You've officially unlocked their inner nightmare. You might catch them scanning the perimeter, quietly tracking exits, trying to spot a restroom that doesn't look like a biohazard. They're not being antisocial, they're trying to survive. Capricorns process everything deeply. They're highly aware of their surroundings, and when those surroundings are unstable, it pulls their entire nervous system into high alert. While other signs might lose themselves in the moment, Capricorns are calculating things you didn't even think about. How long is this going to last? Is there a place to sit? Why is that guy yelling? Is there a cell signal in case something happens? That's the thing. Where others go to escape, Capricorns go to observe. And when there's too much happening all at once, it's not entertaining. It's exhausting. Now let's talk about bathrooms. Yes, really, because you and I both know those porta potties at festivals, they're a social contract we all pretend doesn't exist. But a Capricorn isn't pretending. They see it, they judge it, and in most cases, they'll hold it until the point of medical risk just to avoid walking into one. It's not just about being picky, it's about dignity, cleanliness, respect for one's own body and space. A Capricorn won't say it out loud, but they're thinking, what kind of adult chooses this on purpose? Even if they want to enjoy the experience, they'll struggle. Their body might be physically present, but their mind is running diagnostic checks. How is this useful? What's the value? Am I learning anything? Is this pushing me forward or pulling me sideways? And if the event has no real structure, just a vibe, a loose start time, no clear schedule, they'll start to unravel, slowly at first. Maybe they'll get quiet. Maybe they'll make dry jokes about the lack of organization. But internally, they're checking out. And unlike more expressive signs, Capricorns don't complain. They exit silently. You won't get a dramatic scene. No meltdown. No "I hate this" rant. Just detachment. A slow, controlled retreat into themselves. And once that door closes, it's almost impossible to reopen. Because again, this isn't about the festival. It's about what the festival represents. To a Capricorn, this kind of environment screams instability. It represents people who live moment to moment, people who don't plan, people who can't sit with themselves unless there's noise to distract them. And if you invited them here, they start to wonder if you might be one of those people. That's the hidden layer most people miss. Capricorns aren't judging the activity. They're evaluating you based on the activity you chose. They're reading into your mindset, your values, your relationship to chaos, because they're not just dating for fun. They're scanning for compatibility, for long-term alignment, for someone who sees the world through a lens of purpose. So if your idea of bonding is screaming over music in a crowd of strangers while trying not to step in something unidentifiable near a food truck, you've got a problem. And not because it's wrong, but because it's fundamentally misaligned with how a Capricorn wants to connect. Capricorns crave depth. They want to get to know the core of a person, the parts you don't show the world. And they want that discovery process to happen in a calm, intentional setting, not while shouting, "What?" every 5 seconds, because the base is shaking the earth. Now, can Capricorns let loose? Absolutely. They have a dry, wicked sense of humor and love a good time. But they want to choose when and how that happens. They want to feel emotionally safe and physically comfortable. That's when they come alive, not when they're surrounded by noise they didn't sign up for. And let's be real, part of this comes from how much pressure they put on themselves. Capricorns are constantly on. They're responsible, pulled together, always thinking 2 steps ahead. So when they finally take time off to relax, they want it to actually feel restorative, not draining, not disorienting, not like they need another vacation just to recover. They've already got enough stress in their daily lives. They don't need to pay money to be stressed in public with 10,000 strangers. So if you're dating a Capricorn, or trying to, know this. It's not about the activity itself. It's about what the activity says about your understanding of who they are. Suggesting a chaotic, unstructured event with questionable hygiene doesn't just miss the mark. It sends a message. I don't really see you. And that's what cuts deepest for a Capricorn. Feeling unseen, misunderstood, like the very core of their being, their need for peace, purpose, and control was completely ignored in favor of a good time. It makes them question whether you're compatible, whether you're paying attention, whether you're a safe place for them to put down their armor and be soft. Because as tough and composed as they seem, Capricorns have an emotional world that runs deep, but they only share it when they trust you to handle it with care. And nothing erodes that trust faster than being thrown into a setting where their boundaries are tested, their preferences are ignored, and their discomfort is brushed off as no big deal. So maybe next time you're thinking of a fun, spontaneous group, hang at a massive festival, pause. Ask yourself, would my Capricorn actually enjoy this? Or am I just hoping they'll go along with it? Because if you're honest, and the answer is the latter, you already know it's not the right move. And deep down, so do they. But when you do understand their needs, when you plan something thoughtful, clean, calm, and well organized, they'll give you a version of themselves most people never get to see. Loyal, hilarious, insightful, completely present. It's not about impressing them, it's about respecting them. Number 3, a party full of loud strangers and no purpose. There's a very specific kind of social discomfort that only Capricorns know how to fully articulate, though they rarely do it out loud. It happens the moment they walk into a room filled with people they've never met, a noise level slightly above tolerable, music thumping in the background, and absolutely no clear reason why any of this is happening. Just bodies, voices, flashing lights, small talk, chaos, and a bowl of chips that's been manhandled by 20 different fingers. This isn't fun to them. This is work without a paycheck. Capricorns thrive on intentionality. They need a reason, a goal, a structure to sink their teeth into So when you bring them to a party, just because, with people they don't know, no meaningful conversations to engage in, and a vague promise of a good time, you're not giving them an opportunity. You're placing them in social exile. They'll stand there with their drink, quietly scanning the room, trying to find a corner where the sound isn't overwhelming and the air doesn't feel so performative. They'll smile politely, nod at strangers, engage in a few surface-level convos about traffic or weather. But inside, they're plotting their exit strategy with the precision of a military operation. And here's where it gets personal. Because this isn't just about the noise or the people. It's about how useless it all feels to them. Capricorns carry a heavy relationship with time. They don't want to waste it. They don't want to be in a space where nothing is growing, nothing is deepening, and no one is saying anything real. To a Capricorn, small talk feels like chewing cardboard. They want substance. They want to connect below the surface, past the image, past the filters. So when a room is full of loud, shiny energy, but no actual intimacy or value, they don't just get bored, they get disappointed. They'll wonder, why would someone invite me here? Do they not know me at all? Do they think I enjoy pretending to laugh at shallow jokes while trying to read lips across a noisy kitchen? It sounds harsh, but this is the truth. Capricorns want their presence to matter. They want to show up somewhere and feel like they're adding something or learning something. When that doesn't happen, they feel like they're fading into the wallpaper. And that's where the internal resentment starts. Even worse, if you invited them with enthusiasm, like, you'll love this crowd, they're all so fun, and the crowd turns out to be 5 friends from your high school who still quote the same inside jokes from 2011, the Capricorn will absolutely fake a phone call if it means getting out early. And again, they won't necessarily tell you. They're loyal, they're kind. They don't want to ruin your vibe, but their silence will stretch. Their eyes will narrow. Their energy will shrink into a tight, guarded ball. Because what you thought was a casual night out felt to them like a test of social endurance with no reward. Now let's talk about the purpose, or lack thereof. If the party has a theme, a reason, a gathering intention, Capricorns can adapt. Give them a birthday to celebrate, a retirement, a business networking mixer, even a book club. If it's clear, grounded, and going somewhere, they'll show up with something thoughtful in hand and contribute like the rock stars they are. But a room full of strangers talking over each other with no focus, no anchor, and no emotional connection, that's their version of social purgatory. And it's not because they don't like people. Capricorns actually do enjoy deep connections, one-on-one convos, and long, thoughtful exchanges, but they're slow to warm up. They don't dive in head first. They want to observe, feel things out, decide where and how to open up. A loud, unstructured party with no social glue doesn't give them that space. It overwhelms them, it scatters the energy, and worst of all, it makes them feel like they have to perform to belong. Capricorns hate performance for the sake of fitting in. They want to be useful, real, solid. They want their presence to have weight. So when they find themselves in an environment where everyone's just vibing, but no one is actually being honest or intentional, they feel invisible, or worse, misunderstood. This is why Capricorns often show up at parties in 2 distinct moods: completely shut down, arms crossed, politely detached, over-functioning, asking where the trash goes, helping clean up, making sure everyone else is okay. Because if they can't relax or connect, they'll default to being useful. It's how they manage their discomfort. It's how they stay grounded in an environment that feels like it has no anchor. And here's the kicker. After the party, they won't text you angrily. They won't say you ruined their night, but they will remember. They'll file it away under places I should never agree to again, and they'll quietly pull back. Not because they didn't enjoy spending time with you, but because the environment made them feel so disconnected from themselves. They start to question if you actually see them. Capricorns aren't here for entertainment. They're here for meaning. And when that's missing, they don't know what to do with themselves. They become shadows in rooms full of noise. Present, but not present. Smiling, but not engaged. That's not how they want to feel. And it's definitely not how they want to feel with you. So if you're planning a gathering and you want a Capricorn to feel included, consider this. Create space for quiet conversations. Introduce them to people they can really talk to. Let them opt in, not be thrown into a circus. Respect their energy, and they'll bring you the kind of depth that makes other people feel seen. Ignore their discomfort, and they'll withdraw in a way that's hard to recover from. Because at the end of the day, all Capricorns really want is a setting where they can be themselves, thoughtful, grounded, present, not lost in the noise, not hidden behind polite smiles. They want connection, not performance, presence, not pressure. And they want to feel like wherever they are, they matter. And while we're talking about where not to take a Capricorn, there's one particular kind of setting that seems like a romantic wing, but pushes every Capricorn button in the wrong direction. Number 4, a pricey restaurant with no visible menu. There's something seductive about mystery, about dim lighting, polished silverware, and a host that greets you by name because someone pulled strings. But what might feel like class and luxury to some feels like unpredictability and financial tension to a Capricorn. Let's set the scene. You're trying to impress them. You book a table at that sleek, exclusive place downtown, the one everyone on Instagram raves about. You show up dressed sharp. They show up, on time, always. They trust you've made thoughtful plans. You've done something bold, a little extravagant. You're hoping they'll be impressed. You sit down, and then it begins. No prices on the menu. To the average person, this might feel like high-end glamour, but for a Capricorn, it's a quiet horror. It's not just that they can't see the cost, it's that they can't see the logic. Capricorns aren't cheap. Let's get that straight. They'll spend when it matters, when the value is clear, when the experience has purpose. But a menu without prices, that feels like a trap, a performance, a place where perception matters more than reality. And nothing turns off a Capricorn faster than surface-level showmanship with no substance underneath. You might think, relax, I'm paying. But it's not about the bill. It's about transparency. Capricorns need to know. They need the facts, the structure, the layout of a situation. Not having that makes them deeply uncomfortable. And now, instead of enjoying the night, they're stuck in their head doing invisible math. What's market rate for Wagyu Tartar? Is this drink 22 lalans or 45 idlis? Should I pretend I'm not worried? All while smiling and nodding like everything's fine. Inside, it's not. They start wondering, why here? What's the point of this? Is this about connection or just about showing off? Because if they even sense that the setting was chosen to impress instead of connect, they'll start pulling away. They want authenticity, not a curated performance of wealth. A Capricorn will be far more touched by a mid-range spot with killer food and great conversation than by sitting in silence in a gold-plated dining room where half the menu is in French and everyone's pretending to understand it. Let's go deeper, because this moment is rarely just about the meal. It reveals value systems. A Capricorn is watching closely. How do you treat the staff? Are you courteous without being performative? Are you generous in ways that actually matter? Or are you more focused on appearances? Capricorns are not here for smoke and mirrors. They were born with built-in radar for inauthenticity. And if the entire night feels like a spectacle, one where they're expected to react with amazement, they'll quietly begin to armor up. Because when something feels staged, they stop feeling safe. They're not looking to be dazzled. They're looking to be trusted with truth. And they also want to feel like their presence is respected, especially when it comes to money. Because here's what people often miss. Even when a Capricorn has money, they remember when they didn't. They remember what it meant to stretch every dollar. They remember the hustle. They value stability because they know how hard it is to build. So when you casually throw down 3 digits on a meal without blinking, they're not always impressed. They might be unnerved. Not because you're generous, but because they don't understand why. What did this buy us, really? A moment? A mood? Something we could have had in a simpler space for half the cost? Capricorns want experiences that feel earned, not just expensive. They want meaning, not flash. And they especially don't want to feel like they're being tested on how well they can fake comfort in a world they didn't choose. Because even if they play along, Even if they sip the overpriced cocktail and compliment the plating, they're clocking everything: the lighting, the tension, the money, the motivations behind your choice. And if any of it feels hollow, they'll shut down. You won't know it right away. But later when you text, "That was fun, right?" you might get a shorter answer than usual, or a longer pause, or a sudden shift in their tone. Because you didn't just take them to dinner, you put them in a situation where they had to perform, calculate, question, and all they really wanted was to feel grounded and seen. It's not that Capricorns hate luxury. Quite the opposite. They work hard so they can enjoy the best. But they want luxury to be intentional, not performative. They want it to feel like a reward, not a distraction. Like something shared with care, not flaunted to impress. Want to blow a Capricorn away? Choose a spot with a rich history, a thoughtful backstory, something off the beaten path but deeply meaningful. Or better yet, cook something at home. Show them effort, planning, consideration. Those things speak louder to them than any $200 steak ever could. Because at the core, what Capricorns truly crave is clarity, not just in the menu, but in the moment. They want to know where they stand, what you value, and why you do the things you do. So when that's missing, when things feel vague, exaggerated, or superficial, they don't just get uncomfortable, they get distant. And if you're not paying attention, you might mistake their silence for coldness, their reserve for judgment. But it's not that. They're just trying to figure out if this experience brought them closer to you or farther away from who they are. So the next time you're planning a date with a Capricorn, ask yourself, am I creating an experience for us? Or am I creating a moment about me? Because they will feel the difference every time. And while we're talking about settings that unintentionally push Capricorns away, there's another type of situation, less glamorous, more emotionally charged, that seems well-meaning on the surface, but often puts them right back into their protective shell. Number 5, a cringe couples workshop or group icebreaker activity. Let's talk about vulnerability for real, because Capricorns are not immune to emotion. They're not these robotic, success-driven machines that pop out of the womb holding a 5-year plan. They feel deeply, but they guard those feelings with a level of intentionality most people don't understand. And that's why there's a very specific kind of date scenario that absolutely makes them want to vanish into thin air. Here it is, the forced intimacy event. You've seen them. Maybe you've even signed up for one yourself. A conscious couples workshop, a weekend retreat with group exercises, a guided partner meditation, something with matching mats, a soft-spoken facilitator, maybe a moment where you're supposed to lock eyes with your partner and breathe into your shared trust. You think it's sweet, spiritual, a bonding experience, but to a Capricorn, it's social horror disguised as healing. Here's why. Capricorns don't open on command. Their emotional world is a private vault, and they don't hand over the key because a stranger with a clipboard says it's time to connect. They need trust, time, safety, and most of all, choice. Put them in a room with 10 other couples where the instructions are to pair up and express your deepest fears while holding eye contact. And you might as well ask them to perform brain surgery in front of a live audience. They'll freeze. Their internal walls shoot up. Their first instinct? Protect, not participate. Because for Capricorns, real vulnerability isn't performative. It's not something you showcase for an audience. It's sacred, quiet, personal. So when they're asked to share openly in a setting that feels artificial, their whole system says, this is not safe. And let's not forget, they're watching everyone else too. Capricorns have an unshakable internal radar. So if the room feels fake, if people are oversharing for attention, if the facilitator feels off, if anything about the experience reeks of insincerity, they won't just be uncomfortable, they'll be offended, because nothing upsets a Capricorn more than vulnerability being used instead of honored. Now you might be thinking, but I just wanted to connect. I thought this would bring us closer. Totally fair. But here's the thing, Capricorns connect through real life, through action, through steady shared experience, not fast-tracked intimacy set to background flute music. You want to open them up. Be consistent. Be patient. Show up for them in the small ways. That's how trust is built. That's when the door starts to crack open. Capricorns are slow-burn people. They don't leap into emotional territory until they know it's safe ground. So when they're thrown into a situation that demands emotional exposure without enough foundation, they feel ambushed. It's not just uncomfortable, it's disorienting. And what happens when a Capricorn is emotionally disoriented? They don't lash out, they shut down. Their body might stay in the room, but their presence exits. They'll get quiet, numb, polite in a way that's not really polite. It's protective. They're thinking, I can't trust this. I can't trust you. I can't trust this space, because emotional safety is everything to them. If they don't feel it, they can't access the part of themselves you are trying to reach. They don't do emotional roulette. They don't throw their heart on the table just to see what happens. And here's what makes this scenario even trickier. When you ask them after the fact how it went, they might lie. They'll say something like, it was fine, or yeah, it was interesting, and they'll move the conversation along. Not because they want to deceive you, but because they don't know if you can handle the truth yet. They're trying to assess whether being honest with you will cost them peace. So instead of saying, that made me feel cornered, exposed, and emotionally unsafe, they'll put a mask on it. And if that pattern repeats, if they're consistently put in environments where they feel emotionally unsafe, they'll eventually stop showing up altogether. Not dramatically, quietly. One missed call here, one busy with work there, until the connection just thins out and fades, and you're left wondering what happened. Here's the real kicker. Capricorns want intimacy. They just want it to be earned, slow, quiet, real, not scheduled, not staged, not part of a relationship package that treats connection like a checkbox on a to-do list. Because for a Capricorn, love is work, but not performative work. It's the work of showing up, of building trust over time, of watching how you treat people, how you handle pressure, how you move through real life, not just curated moments. They want to cry with someone, but only if the tears are real. They want to be held, but only by someone who knows why they need to be held. They want to share their fears, their past, their soft spots, but only with someone who's already proven they won't weaponize that softness later. So when you invite them to a space that tries to manufacture emotional closeness before safety is established, you're not accelerating the relationship, you're destabilizing it. And here's the part that cuts deep. A Capricorn might go with you. They might sit on that cushion, participate, smile, follow the script. But what you don't see is how much it costs them, how they leave that space feeling raw in a way they can't explain, how they start to question if they're being seen or just being managed. Because if your goal is control, not connection, they'll feel it. Capricorns are finely tuned to the difference between emotional presence and emotional manipulation. And when something feels like the latter, they retreat into themselves so fast, it'll leave emotional whiplash in its wake. The result? You thought you were getting closer, but they're already pulling away. This doesn't mean Capricorns aren't capable of deep emotional work. Quite the opposite. When they trust the space, they go deeper than most signs. They'll share truths that are layered, complex, rooted in legacy and self-expectation. They'll love you from the bones outward, but they have to feel safe. They have to choose it. You can't shortcut that. You can't force it. You can't workshop your way there. So if you want to grow closer to a Capricorn, start small. Be consistent. Be clear. Be kind. And most importantly, be patient. Let them lead. Let them open at their pace. Don't shove a flashlight into the corners of their soul just because you're eager to go deep. Because trust me, they'll go deep. But only if they believe the depth won't drown them. And speaking of discomfort dressed as connection, there's another kind of setting, one that's framed as spiritual, peaceful, and totally chill, but for a Capricorn, it's anything but number 6, a backyard, spiritual healing, session with your friends. On paper, it might sound wholesome, beautiful even. You light candles, lay out yoga mats on the grass, cue up a playlist of wind chimes and gentle flutes, and call it a healing circle. Everyone's barefoot. Someone is burning sage. Your friend who just got into astrology is talking about full moon energy, and how we're all releasing what no longer serves us. To you, it feels like connection, openness, intention. But to a Capricorn, this isn't peace. This is performance in disguise. Let's make something clear. Capricorns aren't anti-spiritual. Many are incredibly attuned to inner growth. They believe in legacy, karma, cycles of life, ancestral memory. But they're private about it, deep about it, and most importantly, they're grounded, rooted. Their version of spirituality is quiet, often solitary, and never performative. So when you invite them to a backyard event where people are journaling aloud, sharing dreams with strangers, or channeling the energy of the earth in group hugs, you're not creating a safe space. You're placing them in emotional and psychological quicksand. They'll sit there, respectful. They won't laugh or make you feel embarrassed. Capricorns never humiliate people, but inside they are shrinking, retreating, analyzing. Why am I here? Why are we doing this? Does anyone know what they're actually talking about? Because for them, true healing is slow, earned, and rooted in intention. It's not about looking aligned. It's about doing the hard work quietly, over time, in spaces that don't demand validation. To a Capricorn, public spirituality often feels like an emotional trap. You're being asked to express, reveal, soften in a setting that lacks depth, structure, and trust. You're being asked to join a ritual you didn't design, around people who may not even mean it, and that's what gets them. It's not just the crystals and incense, it's the energy of inauthenticity that often clings to these spaces. The Capricorn senses it like a dog senses a storm. If the space isn't real, they can't open. If the people aren't grounded, they feel like they're floating in a sea of noise, alone, because they've done the real work. They've stayed up late reflecting, pushed through pain without announcing it on Instagram, made hard choices when no one was watching. So to walk into a circle where healing feels like a costume, where spiritual language is used without real depth, it offends something primal in them. They won't say it. Capricorns rarely expose their internal reactions, but they'll start to go quiet. Their presence will shift. They may nod and listen, but the connection is gone. They're not there anymore. And the worst part? They might feel guilty about it, because deep down, Capricorns want to connect. They want to feel like they belong, like they can be part of something that nurtures them. But when the space feels performative, when the energy is forced, when it's all candles and no clarity, they feel like outsiders in their own experience. They'll ask themselves, is something wrong with me? Why can't I connect to this the way others seem to? But the truth is, nothing's wrong. They're just tuned differently. Capricorns crave structure, depth, reality. They're not drawn to vibes, they're drawn to substance. They need frameworks, not fluff. They want to feel held by truths, not by trends. So when a spiritual space lacks grounding, they don't rise, they disconnect. And it's not just about the moment, it's about the message beneath the moment. Because when you invite a Capricorn to a group energy healing with your barefoot friends and third eye sprays, what they hear is, I think this is your kind of thing. And if it isn't, if it doesn't reflect them at all, they start to wonder how well you actually know them. That moment of disconnect is deeper than it looks. It makes them question the foundation of the relationship, because Capricorns aren't transactional, but they are intentional, and they believe every invitation says something. So if the invitation says, I want to show off how spiritual I am, or I don't care if this is your thing, just go with it, that speaks louder than sage smoke ever could. What would mean more to them? A one-on-one walk, a quiet conversation, an afternoon spent doing something real together, something that doesn't demand transformation, just honesty, something that doesn't require emotional acrobatics or performance, something grounded. They would rather sit in silence with someone they trust than chant affirmations with people they barely know, because for them, presence is sacred, but only when it's rooted in reality. And let's not ignore the body part of all this. These healing spaces often assume physical openness, touching, hugging, laying close, movement. For a Capricorn, that kind of vulnerability is earned. It doesn't happen on cue. They don't want to sink into your energy. unless they already feel safe in your actual presence. When they feel rushed into those moments, they don't just pull back, they harden. Their inner world closes like a steel vault, and every question, every guided visualization, every close your eyes and feel the group's heartbeat as one makes that door lock tighter. It's not that they're cynical, it's that they know what real emotional labor looks like, and they refuse to fake it. That refusal is their boundary. It's not rejection, it's self-respect. So if you've ever taken a Capricorn to one of these events and wondered why they seemed distant, disconnected, or not trying, now you know. They were trying to stay present, trying not to judge, trying to participate without losing themselves. But you asked for openness without creating true safety, and they know the cost of that kind of ask. They've paid it before, and they won't pay it again. So when the session ends, and people start talking about how powerful it was, and you turn to your Capricorn with hopeful eyes, looking for agreement, don't be surprised if they offer a small smile and say, "Yeah, it was interesting." That's not sarcasm. That's a soft boundary. Because what they're really saying is, "I love you. I came here for you. But this wasn't it for me." And that matters. That quiet honesty, it's a gift. Because Capricorns don't fake connection. When they show up, it means something. And when they retreat, it means something too. So if you really want to connect with a Capricorn, invite them somewhere solid, somewhere simple, somewhere honest. You don't need candles or chants or healing circles. You just need truth. Sometimes the most quietly disrespectful thing you can do to a Capricorn is underestimate how much intention they put into everything they do. Not because they expect applause for it, but because they live that way. They don't do anything halfway. So when you casually invite them to just hang, and it turns out to be a lazy, directionless, half-thought-out mess of a day, they're not going to rage. They're going to disconnect. Maybe it's a last-minute meetup at someone's messy apartment. Maybe it's an unplanned day with no food, no plan, no purpose, just people sprawled on couches talking in circles, watching whatever random video auto plays next. You say, "It's chill," but what they hear is, "I didn't care enough to think this through," and that's the final nail in the coffin. Because what Capricorns crave more than perfection is intention. Not rigid structure, not expensive outings, not curated perfection, but care. They want to know the moment matters to you, that it has weight, that it's not just filler between more important things. When you bring them into a space that feels directionless, where time is being burned instead of shared, they shrink. You won't see an outburst. You'll just notice they're quieter, more reserved, less open, because their inner compass is always asking, what is the value of this moment? What are we building here? Capricorns are builders of careers, of relationships, of futures. If the moment isn't feeding something, connection, rest, understanding, progress, they begin to feel lost, disconnected, like they're wasting something sacred. And that's really the thread that ties everything in this video together, isn't it? We've talked about 7 places you should never invite a Capricorn to, each of them different, each one capable of setting off a silent internal alarm inside their soul. From chaotic surprise trips to loud, unstructured social scenes, from performative vulnerability workshops to overly flashy restaurants, from backyard pseudo-spirituality to careless hangouts disguised as dates, it all comes back to one thing. Capricorns need to feel like the moment is real. They don't need constant excitement. They don't need to be blown away. They don't even need control over everything. But they do need to feel like someone thought this through, that their time, energy, and presence were respected. And when that happens, when a Capricorn feels seen, honored, and grounded in a moment that makes sense to them, that's when their real magic shows up. They open, they soften, they show you the part of themselves they rarely share. The quiet loyalty, the dry humor, the slow-burning emotional depth. They become the kind of partner, friend, or companion who doesn't just show up for the fun stuff, but sticks around when things get real. So if you've ever misread your Capricorn or invited them somewhere that left them feeling off, don't beat yourself up. You're here, you're learning, and that means everything. And if you are a Capricorn watching this, drop a comment below. Let people know what your biggest pet peeve is when it comes to dates, hangouts, or social settings. Educate us. Tell us what makes you feel respected or what makes you quietly never text back. We're listening. This channel, Secret of the Zodiac, is all about real astrology for real people. No fluff, no fake positivity, just honest, grounded, thoughtful insight that actually reflects the way these signs move through the world. If this resonated with you even a little, take a second to subscribe. It helps us grow, it helps more people find us, and it tells YouTube you want more videos like this in your feed. And while you're here, hit the like button. It's free, it takes a second, and it helps us keep making more content that respects your time and intelligence. Now, this part is really important. If you want to go above and beyond to support what we do here, consider leaving a super thanks. It's that little heart with a $sign under the video. Every contribution helps us with editing, research, scripting, and making sure we can post more content daily. It's a way to say, hey, I see the work you're putting in, and I want to help keep it going. Seriously, every super thanks goes right back into the channel. It helps us upgrade gear, bring on more creatives, and keep showing up for you with the depth and consistency you deserve. So whether you're here because you love astrology or because you're just trying to understand someone better, thank you. You're part of something real, and we're so grateful to have you. Now, drop a comment. Tell us your sign. Tell us your worst date story. Tell us what you'd never do again with a Capricorn. We want this to be a conversation, not just content. And until the next video, stay real, stay grounded, and never ever take a Capricorn on a surprise group sound bath. We'll see you soon.